My name is Daniel, and my parents passed away in a car accident during the winter of my third year in junior high. At that time, my younger brother John had just started elementary school and couldn't manage without help. Our relatives were compassionate and shared in our grief. However, their own circumstances made it impossible for them to take in both a 15-year-old and a 7-year-old. Essentially, we had no one to rely on. I had planned to go to high school, but I gave that up to start working. I became a construction worker at a local company in the spring. While my classmates attended high school and enjoyed their youth, I worked from morning till evening, sweating it out. It was tough, and those unaware of my situation often assumed I had poor academic abilities or bad conduct, which made me feel miserable at times. But raising and caring for my little brother was more important. I didn't want him to feel lonely. I wanted him to live as normally as possible. So I worked hard every day, doing house chores, even though I wasn't used to them, and helping him with his studies at night. Thanks to that effort, John grew up to be a studious and hardworking young man, progressing smoothly from middle school to high school, then to university, and eventually getting a job. He is intelligent and diligent, the pride of my life. When John went to college, a relative who helped him financially said, "It's because of you, Daniel, your hard work that John grew up so well." I was prouder than ever. One day, my adorable younger brother brought his girlfriend home. She was the daughter of a large company, well-mannered and smart. Although I wouldn't use the term mismatched social status nowadays, given our circumstances, the relationship felt exactly like that. John was clearly smitten, but I felt intimidated by her refined aura. Moreover, we never had much female company in our house, so I had no experience entertaining women, which made me very nervous. Despite my nerves, it seemed worth it. His girlfriend appreciated our hospitality and treated me kindly, acknowledging me as her boyfriend's brother. I envied him for having such a wonderful person as his future wife and wanted them to be absolutely happy. I want to cherish my sister-in-law as much as him, at least at first. Since then, John's girlfriend had visited our house several times. Although she seemed uncomfortable in our small house, she behaved cheerfully most of the time. I was happy to think she was getting used to our home. When it was decided that they were to get married, I felt even more relieved and delighted. However, one Sunday, just about a week before the wedding, I received a call from John's girlfriend. Even over the phone, her voice sounded very different from when she was with him, and she was clearly upset. "Brother-in-law, about John's and my wedding next week, could you not attend?" "What do you mean?" I asked, surprised. "Well, you see, my family has a fair bit of stature. I can understand John being there because he's brilliant and handsome, regardless of his background. But for someone like you, Daniel, who lacks educational and professional credentials, to be part of our family is a bit troubling. Let's say it's not just about me. I can't put my parents through the embarrassment or discomfort." She spoke clearly, not mincing words. John had told me he liked her straightforward personality, but to me, it was just cruel. I understood that legally, you can't sever the ties of brotherhood, so I gave up on that. But at the very least, I would like to pretend you don't exist. All I'm asking is for you to not attend the wedding and not be present at family gatherings. Can you do that for the sake of John's and my bright future? Regardless of how she felt, I couldn't deny her words when she said it was for John's bright future. After all, I had lived my life up until now for his happiness. I couldn't go against that, even if it meant missing his big day. I understand your point. I've lived long enough to have been told about my lack of education and career credentials. If my absence will benefit John and you, I will not attend the ceremony. Is that okay?" "Yes, I really appreciate it," she said. As soon as I confirmed my absence, her mood seemed to brighten. She said goodbye in the cheerful voice I was familiar with and hung up the phone. After the call, I felt a wave of exhaustion and slumped onto the floor. Though I had agreed, it didn't mean I wasn't upset. It was painful to know that someone who was about to become family thought of me in such a way. The most painful part was not being able to attend John's wedding. I had wanted to bring our parents' portraits and celebrate with the four of us as a family. But I couldn't deny it. The truth was that my academic abilities were not strong, and my employment history wasn't impressive. It had been my own decision to give up on pursuing higher education, so the one to blame was me. I was the one dampening his new beginning, casting a shadow over his important milestone. I fell into deep self-loathing and spent the day feeling depressed, unable to focus on anything. When John returned home after work, he shared various things about the wedding reception, honeymoon, and their future life. However, due to what his fiancée had said earlier, I found it difficult to respond meaningfully or engage in the conversation. Daniel, what's wrong? Are you feeling ill? John looked at me worriedly, but I didn't know how to respond. I'm not particularly bright and I'm bad at lying. In times like these, I usually speak up, but I didn't want to say anything bad about the woman who was about to become his wife. However, if he were to say the same thing as her, I could accept it and graciously decline attending the wedding. Realizing the importance of my relationship with him, I mustered the courage to be honest and share all my feelings and thoughts, even though I knew it might make him dislike me. Your fiancée told me that someone who can't exactly boast a life to be proud of shouldn't attend your wedding. She said if you feel the same way, just tell me outright. The most painful thing for me is to be a burden to you. If you don't want me to attend, I'll gladly comply. With a voice seething with anger from the core of his being, John said, You really think I would say something like that? There's no way I could think something so cruel about the only family I have. After roaring those words, John calmed down a bit. Then, with a look as if he had just thought of something, he said, Daniel, how about not coming to the wedding just as she said? Please, I'd like you to wait for me at home. Is that okay? Wait, what do you mean? The words were quite shocking, but I understood from John's subsequent explanation that there was some thought behind it. There's no need to show up to a celebration involving someone who says such terrible things, Daniel. On the wedding day, although I was told not to come, I was still worried. To my brother, I was the only person he could call family. I couldn't help but worry if there were any issues or disputes during the family gathering. So, I got dressed in my brother's suit and secretly went to the venue. It was strangely quiet at my younger brother's place. I approached one of the staff members who seemed troubled and asked, Sorry for being late, but how far has the ceremony progressed? The staff member replied, We can't start the ceremony because none of the groom's family has arrived yet. What? I was led to John's dressing room and asked him, John, our uncles haven't arrived. That's right, Daniel, he replied. I told them not to come. Why did you suddenly tell them not to come? I asked, confused. If I told our uncles and aunts what you've been told, they'd say, Well, we're the shameful relatives who couldn't help when you needed, so they wouldn't attend the ceremony. That's why nobody's coming today. I just thought I'd eat the food and go back. It's a waste otherwise. That's completely outrageous. I couldn't hide my shock. Why would the entire family go to such lengths to make things difficult? It was supposed to be a day of celebration for you. What could have possibly led them to such a decision? Seeing my distress, John reassured me. I loved her, but I can't forgive her for what she said to you. My proud uncles in our family feel the same way. If she can't consider you as family, I can't be part of hers. I'm thinking of breaking off the engagement. Just as John finished speaking, a woman burst into the room. It was John's fiancée, still in her bridal gown. How long are you going to keep me waiting? We're already past the start time, she said, agitated. John replied calmly, At the very least, none of my family will be coming. Daniel here didn't come for the wedding. He's just here to see me. Let's just have our meal and call it a day. As for you and me, we can't get married. I'd like to say this engagement never happened. That's impossible. You can't just cancel the wedding at the last minute like this, she exclaimed, her face turning red with embarrassment and anger. John's response was cold. You seem to have said some pretty terrible things to him. Remember the family issues we discussed before? Knowing all that, you decided to say something that would upset him while I wasn't around. At first, I was surprised at how low you could stoop, but then I realized you're exactly the type to do something like this. You only see people based on their achievements, don't you? Unfortunately, I'm also what you'd call a failure, raised by another failure. So, I can't marry a woman who doesn't care about my family. She burst into tears. I'm just telling the truth. I can't introduce a family where the husband's family consists of only high school dropouts working in construction. How shameful. I asked myself if I could remain silent after being talked to like that. John defended me and sided with me, and if I kept my silence, it would make him look foolish. This was an issue between her and me. While she might be right, I have lived my life doing my best. It hurts when someone who knows nothing about me looks down on me. Yes, I might not be the brightest and I have no prestigious credentials, but even without such things, I have lived my life strongly to protect my precious family. You have no right to deny my way of life. With her hysterical crying and my loud voice, her family and the venue staff began to gather. Inadvertently, everyone heard her offensive words. Her parents, figuring out what was happening through her words, began to bow their heads to my brother and me. And here I thought you finally found a man to marry, and you start saying such things. I thought I could finally relax, thinking you were going to move out. Her father, his head in his hands, scolded her. We deeply apologize. It's partly her fault for spoiling her too much. We sincerely apologize and hope you can forgive her, her mother said, despite wearing a beautiful dress with a shamefaced, apologetic expression. Even her friends who were attending the wedding seemed to have had enough of her offensive remarks about the groom's family. No one came to her defense or interfered. The attendees just stared at her in disbelief. Even she, usually so glib, was left speechless. Perhaps she finally realized the reactions her words were causing, or maybe she finally understood the disastrous situation she had created. I was 7 when our parents died, John began. My older brother, who started working as soon as he finished middle school, has been sacrificing so much for me. His life isn't something that just anyone can emulate, and even if I were in the same position, I don't think I could have done it. Even if one has a good education, it doesn't guarantee they can live that way. I knew this even when I was 7, but you couldn't understand that. You're less mature than a 7-year-old. I can't marry a child, and I don't want to. So, I'm breaking off our engagement. I don't want to see you anymore. After saying this, John apologized to her parents for the abrupt cancellation and then to the staff. Though he apologized very respectfully and humbly, it was also a clear statement that he had no intention of changing his stance. She, who had ruined one of life's biggest turning points, her wedding, through her own actions, stared blankly at the aftermath. You have a family who scolds and protects you in times like these, right? John continued. My younger brother, too, when he heard about our phone call, was angrier than me. While educational background and work history are certainly important, for me, he is far more important than any of those things. So knowing he outright refused to marry someone like you, I'm a little relieved now. She cried again. It was probably the only thing she could do. And so the wedding ceremony was canceled before it could even begin. Afterward, John really did break off the engagement with her. Since they hadn't submitted their marriage license yet, there were no procedures to take care of, and he quickly cut ties with her. Later, some attendee disseminated photos of the scene online, and it seems that she and her family lost their standing to get work because of this. She probably won't be able to date or marry for a while. It's probably good medicine for someone who was so arrogant. John says that she took care of the entire cost of the wedding cancellation. Of course, it's only right since she was the one who caused this mess, and we, the victims, don't need to worry about it. I'm grateful to him. I don't know anyone else who would get so angry for me, not just because we're family, but because he respects me as a person. Although this wasn't the ideal circumstance, I got to learn this again. After this incident, it feels like our bond as brothers has deepened even more. I'm really proud of John, whom I've raised with care, even though we don't have parents, for growing into such a fine person. Encouraged by him, I started studying for my high school equivalency exam, something I'd been contemplating for a while. A year later, I passed the exam and switched jobs. It's a completely different feel from what I was doing, but learning something new is fun. While working hard, I got my first girlfriend. Of course, she's a woman who values me and my precious family. I plan to invite her over and introduce her to John soon. I want to brag about my wonderful younger brother.